Hello there. This is Jen T. Grace, founder of Publish Your Purpose. And I'm here today with Maggie Alexander, and we are talking about your new book, Shine with ADHD. I am so excited for you, Maggie. The subtitle is Unlock Your Potential with Skills, Medicine, and Micronutrients. So I have a lot to ask you, but before we dive into all the goodness, can you give just a little bit about just who you are and your background?
Oh, I'd be delighted to. And thank you, Jen, so much for this opportunity and all that you've done to support me. I really appreciate it so much. Well, I spent my life being a nurse midwife, delivering babies and helping women in the postpartum realm. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to just support them on a psychosocial mental health basis? So I went off to school and got a degree in psychiatric nursing. And within the first few months of my sitting in my new office, I was introduced to a gentleman who turns out was suicidal because he had ADHD. And I, at that time, I didn't believe in ADHD. I was the nurse midwife who thought broccoli, love, exercise, that's what you need. And really, by pure luck, I wound up prescribing him a tiny dose of long-acting Ritalin, and it changed his life and my life. And now 600 to 700 clients and many others, over the course of the next 13 years. So that's how it all started.
And I know you go deeper into your kind of origin story in the book itself, but I really love that you don't shy away from that fact of because I think it makes you even more of a credible expert by saying I didn't believe in this at first. I think there's something really magical about that to then now have, like you said, 13 years later to be working with almost 700 people. That is such an incredible number of people to have been helping over these years.
Yeah, it was a major transformation. And unbeknownst to me at that point, 13 years ago, I have helped raise 4 children and 3 of them have ADHD.
You're the perfect fit for it. I've also have been raising a child with ADHD. It is, it's a journey for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you were to just kind of take a step back and define what your purpose is, what do you whether it's purpose related to the book or just kind of purpose and how you show up in the world, what would you say that is?
Oh, this is such a misunderstood and poorly appreciated way of walking in the world, ADHD, and it's unfortunate that it has the word deficit in the title. I see the folks that I've had the pleasure of working with and my family members as incredibly creative, really brilliant, heartfelt, intuitive, in some ways magical people. They can do almost anything. As my friend and colleague, Dr. Dotson, says, if they put their mind to it, they can accomplish it. So to support that, I mean, you can imagine, that's a real honor. And as you can see, I'm not a young woman, so I have, some years left, but not that many. So to be able to help people really actualize their potential, that would be fantastic. That's what I hope to do. Yeah.
And I think it leads to what I really want to kind of center our conversation around is really the difference in this book versus other books on the market, because yours takes a medical approach, a micronutrient approach, and there's a flood of books in the market. I know, and I'm sure I know that my algorithms assume that I have ADHD, even though I have no formal diagnosis, but I do have a child with it. And I see so much content everywhere about ADHD, but it's not quite addressing what you address in your book. So can you kind of just share just the big picture of that, and we can kind of go down some rabbit holes?
Sure. One of the sad things about this field is that there's no textbook. Dr. Dotson is working on a textbook. There's no class in medical school or nurse practitioner school, and there are no national guidelines on how to treat ADHD for adults, which is just absolutely shocking. Makes me tearful, actually, to think about that. That's the world we live in. So yeah, this guy, chapter 8, is on medication. And it's not rocket science, guys. It's actually quite simple. They're just 2 drugs, Ritalin and Adderall. Those are the brand names. There are medical names for them, but Ritalin and Adderall. And most people will do better on Adderall, about 70% of the folks I work with. The others will do well on Ritalin. About 5% of the population I've worked with doesn't respond well to stimulants. And the magic is in the precision of the dosing. So if you think about it in terms of eyeglasses, I love this analogy. if you didn't know there were a thing called eyeglasses and someone said, hey, try these 1.25 readers, and then gave you 1.5, 1.75, 2.0, and you're like, wow, right?
Mhm.
Fantastic. Eyeglasses work so well. And then they gave you a 2.25. You'd be like, I still can see better than I can without them. And then they give you 2.5. You'd be like, whoa, headache. I don't like eyeglasses.
Mhm.
Stimulants are just like that. It's very precise. And about 10% of the population needs a very tiny amount. And the fellow that I helped initially, who blew my mind, he
Mhm.
needed a tiny amount. And the reason he had that amazing experience was because we started out with a tiny amount, an amount that most people think is what you'd give to an 8-year-old child. And he was a 43-year-old man, 6'2" and 200 pounds. So precision in how you use the medications. So you start low, you go up slowly, you find that perfect, what I call magic mountain moment.
Mhm.
And then you take it all day long because you wear your eyeglasses all day long. You don't take a tablet or a capsule that's going to last 4, 6, maybe if you're lucky 7 or 8 hours when you're awake for 14 or 16.
Mhm.
So you got to cover the day. Yeah.
So if someone's, like watching this conversation or comes across your book, today or sometime in the future, what I love about the book itself is that it's very inviting. So I'm just going to show up the cover again for anyone who is watching and not listening to this. But the cover is inviting. And I know that the way in which you've written this is coming from a place of compassion. It's coming from a place of we're celebrating this. This is not, because I think that so often there's like this misconception that like this is, like you were saying before, it's poorly named with the word deficit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we kind of think about how you structured your book and what you want from the reader, what's your hope? So someone's like, oh wow, okay, I've been struggling with this, someone I know is struggling with this, and they pick this book up. Like we talked about the medication piece of it a little bit, but like what's the reader journey as they're kind of working their way through your book?
I would just say a complete shift in definition in terms of whether they have ADHD themselves or whether their child has ADHD or their partner has ADHD, someone they love and care about has ADHD, of recognizing that, it's bright and it's beautiful. And there's a lot of just creativity, like I said, potential, passion behind the ADHD brain. We joke a lot about hyperfocus.
Mhm.
The deficit really should be variable, right? It should be that if the thing that you're working on, you're looking at, you're learning about is something that you're interested in, fantastic, because you'll be able to dive in and become expert in that. If it's important and not interesting, you're going to have some challenges. And that's where the medications and the micronutrients really help you out. So it's really just a whole change in orientation in terms of what this thing is, how you live with it, your potential as a human being living with or alongside of somebody with ADHD.
Mm. To me, it seems like such a great book to pick up, especially, and it's both avenues, whether it's you yourself that is, might be struggling with some aspect of this, or you just see someone in your life. Because to me, it seems like such a great problem solving type of book rather than a affirmation or confirmation type of book. Because in our working together, I've obviously seen some of the books that are out there on the market, and there's books out there that are doing great and wonderful, but yours is actually like showing, I think, a concrete way through the use of medication to actually solve the problem versus, I think, I don't know, you're the expert in this. It feels like sometimes the medication aspect of it also has like a bad rap. Does that feel accurate? And is it just because people are not dosed properly?
Yeah, there's just a lot of misinformation about it. It's commonly misunderstood that the meds will numb you down or dumb you down. And certainly in the case of the fellow that I described earlier, he was given some Adderall when he was in high school for a year, and it helped him get through his senior year of high school, but he didn't feel well on it because it was the wrong med, and he felt agitated and he felt kind of dumbed down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important that you do pick the right medication, that you don't over medicate.
Mm-hmm.
And in most cases, people are under medicated, so they're not actually given enough to be able to have the full experience that they need to have. And there's so much more. I mean, root causes include, of course, broccoli love and exercise. You need to look at nutrients, and there's a whole chapter in the book on micronutrients in terms of if you're anemic, or maybe you got a low zinc, or maybe your vitamin D is off. All of those things very much will contribute to whether or not you're going to be in a good mood and whether or not you can attend. So it's not a one pill solution by any means. You definitely want the whole broad foundation of what it takes to be able to be a healthy individual. I do like Dr. James Greenblatt, who is the founder of Psychiatry Redefines. He wrote a little comment on the back of the book, and I want to actually read that because he is one of my mentors, one of the, I would say, greatest physicians ever to live. He's a fantastic integrative psychiatrist who worked originally with children and now with adults, and he's taught thousands of providers. So he says a compassionate, science-based roadmap, and I think that's the main thing. It is a roadmap for thriving with ADHD. Maggie Alexander blends traditional and integrative wisdom with practical tools to help readers unlock their true potential. So it's really accessible, and it is a book that a clinician, I think, would really benefit from because there is such a dearth of information. Tomorrow I take off for the APSARD, convention conference in San Diego, and there'll be hundreds of clinicians there, and many of them will not know this information.
Yeah,
just stunning.
Yeah, I think the more we work together on this, I don't know why every time I was just like further and further gobsmacked by the lack of any consistency or coherency across the board among providers and clinicians and such. It just seems like, especially now that it is so widely talked about, and maybe that'll be the forcing function that creates the change needed. Clearly, your book is now in the world, which is fantastic. So at least people can start using this as a textbook. And I think what will be fantastic is for providers and other folks that are, not just the person who loves someone in their life or it's themselves, but for people who are treating it, whether it's, it could be a school social worker, it could be, a clinical psychologist, it could really be anybody that I think could really benefit from at least having this as a resource to provide to people if they want to kind of help, and you use the phrase unlock your potential. So if you want to help someone unlock whatever it is related to ADHD, just having your book as that easy kind of handoff to somebody, I think is really important because it just makes it accessible, and it's written in an accessible way. It's written in a compassionate way, and it's designed in an accessible way. So while yes, it is, I don't know the page count off the top of my head, 250 pages almost, it's not dense, tiny text that's really hard to get through. It's very intentionally spaced throughout. So I think that also helps folks. Lots of subheadings, which is, makes it an easier read too.
Right. One of my most favorite parts of the book are the stories and the quotes, because it's dedicated to my clients, and I love them all, and they have taught me what I know as that person who didn't believe in ADHD and didn't really even know how to prescribe medications. I just got very lucky that first day. So there's a lot of wisdom that's shared in all the little, they're in italics, but the little quotes throughout the book. So you get my experience, and you get dozens of clients sharing their wisdom too, which is just lovely.
Yeah. And can we talk a little bit about, at the time of this recording, we're the beginning-ish of January, you will have on your website very soon protocols that people can bring to their providers. Can you explain, for someone who doesn't know what a protocol means, what the benefit of this is? And then, it's MaggieAlexanderNP.com where they'll be able to get this shortly. But can you explain that? Because I really feel like this is going to be such a gift to the world.
Thanks for asking that question. Yeah. One of the things that I love to do is to do an assessment of an individual who has ADHD, who is either not in my area, or maybe I don't take their insurance, and just write up a quick one-page summary of what's going on for them, and then send their provider specific instructions in terms of how to start these stimulant medications. And as I said, it's not rocket science. It's very basic. As I mentioned, you start with Adderall, and then you move over to Ritalin unless the person has had a bad experience with Adderall. So I'm going to write those up. It'll be a couple of pages. I'll probably lean on my colleague, Dr. Dotson, to review those to make sure that they're perfect. It'll be something very simple that can go, to your home, print it off, take it to your doc, or forward it to your physician or your clinician, your nurse practitioner, or your naturopathic doctor, whoever is doing your prescribing. And those folks generally are just really grateful because, like myself, they didn't have the training, and they're nervous because there's still this general idea that stimulants are dangerous, or you can become addicted to them, or you want to do broccoli, love, and exercise first. And nothing could be further from the truth in terms of the impact that precise use of stimulant medications will have on 95% of the population, which is extraordinary. Yeah. So
yeah, I can think of, just again, like kind of the ease of access where, you can, even if whoever might be watching this isn't impacted, but someone is, just send them the book, right? Like, just make it, I think it'll make a great gift for people. But then also being able to say, and you can go to Maggie's website and you can download this thing that is a practical, like a practical thing that you can physically bring to your doctor or provider. I feel like that is absolutely enormous, because then it doesn't require the provider to be the expert. They can interpret what you're saying and then, plan accordingly for that individual in front of them. And I feel like it's such a brilliant way to do this.
And I'll also be available for consultations, both for clinicians and for individuals. So that's something that can be set up privately with me. So if you want to do a consult, or you've got somebody in your life you want to run by me, we can certainly do that regardless of what state you're in.
Yeah. And that's kind of the benefit of, magnifying yourself on a bigger scale as an author, is that now, you will have a larger pool of people that may be coming your way, who will need some support. And that's great, because if you go back to your purpose and wanting to help more people kind of unlock their potential, then what a great way to make that happen.
Yeah, that's true. Just a little plug also for Attitude Magazine. There will be a short article about micronutrients in there by myself. It's a wealth of information, like one of the best resources if you're looking for, short, well-written, entertaining articles and links on ADHD. It's a great resource.
Yeah, that's really, really good to know. So it's your website. It's the Attitude Magazine website. If you think about, like, your book is just like really just coming out. You've been obviously doing this work and you have seen results with almost 700 people. That is like enormous. Like, that is such a good pool of people for you to have worked with. If you like wave a magic wand and it is now 6 months from now, what are you hoping that maybe someone stops you at a conference, or they call you because they're like, hey, I want that consult. What are you hoping that you might hear the book has done for them?
Oh gosh. I hope it touches them the way that I was touched, by the first person whose life was changed, who told me, in an 8-hour day, Maggie, I'm doing an hour maybe of work, I'm flying under the radar. And then 3 days later, after the tiniest amount of long-acting Ritalin you can take, I got the phone call that said, Maggie, I worked all day. That was the first message. The second was, remember I told you I'd go home and I'd take a 2-hour nap. Hallmark of ADHD, fatigue, because you're working so hard at just being able to get through and concentrate and do the basic boring stuff you have to do to be a human, to be an adult. And he would go home and take a 2-hour nap. And he said, Maggie, not only did I work all day, but I came home and I played with my 3 kids. At which point I was on the phone in tears, right? Those are the stories. And a lot of women in particular are told this is just depression, this is just anxiety, or this is just in your head, or you need to go get more exercise or eat more broccoli, and it's not recognized. And they're coming to me at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50. I had a recent client who was 70 years old, who a whole lifetime of being misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed or just not being recognized.
Wow.
So for folks that, they're newly discovering this, regardless of their age, like, again, just to have that affirmation. And there are some really lovely parts in the beginning of the book that talk about the different ways in which ADHD presents. I love the Winnie the Pooh, section where we talk about not everybody's a Tigger, and, some people present more like a Eeyore, a little depressed, or an anxious piglet, or maybe a girl with her, head in the clouds, Winnie the Pooh character. So it's just nice to know that there's kind of a wide way in which this presents, but the common piece of it is just a really creative, heartfelt, really warm-hearted human being. That's one of the things that drew me to this and kept me going, because I'm like, these are the most fun people to work with. They're just delightful. And of course, my own family and friends too, but the folks in front of me every day in terms of my clients, like, they're just super people. So hopefully you all will feel that you're a super person, and know that, you can find those eyeglasses and get them on and leave them on, and your life will be greatly improved.
Yeah, I think my takeaway of what you were just saying is that, it's never too late. I feel like there's that phrase that's applied to many different things in life, but to have someone come to you at 70 who is just now like, wow, like somebody's recognizing me for this, and then for them to be able to take action and live out the next 30 years in a completely different way than the first 70 is remarkable, because it is never too late to kind of take some kind of action that's going to improve your life.
Yes, so true. Yeah, there are dozens of those stories in the book. So
yeah, I'm excited because your book is just so accessible, and I think, and that was something that obviously you were very mindful of and worked very hard toward making sure that both the writing of it, but also the design of it just feels accessible. Because if you have this book that's just scary looking and it looks like something that you would be assigned in a college class, or which we know that doesn't actually exist for ADHD, but if it were to, like, something like that's not going to be something that you're going to want to pick up and read, versus what this is, which is very warm, inviting, engaging, and can actually transform your life, which that's what it's all about, right? We're trying to have transformation here.
Thanks, Jen. I got to say though, Publish Your Purpose helped a lot. So thank you really so much for all of you, not just yourself, but your whole team.
Yeah, you are very welcome. That's what we're here for. Is there anything that you wish I had asked you that I have not yet brought up?
I think the one thing we didn't mention is rejection sensitive dysphoria, which is the mood dysregulation that comes with ADHD. It is the second most debilitating symptom of ADHD. If the first one is trouble with procrastination and getting started on boring events, the second is rejection sensitive dysphoria. So definitely take a look at that chapter. It really talks about this perception that I've messed up, and then I have to unfortunately perseverate and ruminate about. And it could just be a little simple text message, or a way somebody looked at me, or a comment that was made by one of the 50 people in the room, whereas everybody else said, I did a great job. We all suffer from that a bit, but RSD, as Dr. Dotson refers to it, it's a kicker. And so learning how to deal with that will change people's lives. And most of you who are living with ADHD know what I'm talking about. And it's a tough topic. And we're working on trying to improve what's out there in the way of responses to help people with this. So super important and not well understood. Yeah. And it's gone viral. There are those out there who, have taken flight with this, but Dr. Dotson is the man. So again, if you go back to Attitude Magazine and read everything he's written on RSD, you'll feel better.
Yeah, I think so much of this is just not feeling alone, right? Because it's one thing to be on social media, on TikTok, which I feel like has tons of content around ADHD, but I think it's another thing to pick up a book that's written by someone who's an expert in this thing, and to be able to have your hand held through it, to feel like, okay, yeah, I'm not alone. Like, yes, I saw other people saying like, this happens to me, or I do this, or I do that. Like, it's more of like the social side of things, it feels like, that you see people talking about. But to be able to have something that's written by an expert in a compassionate way that doesn't make you feel wrong or bad for any reason, because it's not something you can control. I think that's the very exciting part about all of this to me.
Yeah, it feels like we're building the foundation, and whether that's with micronutrients in terms of increasing your vitamin D or your iron or your zinc, and being able to raise up those neurotransmitters so that you can attend to important, boring tasks. Then the psychosocial piece in terms of, how you organize your life and all the pieces that are on TikTok, right? They play in and they're helpful, but you need the foundation, right?
Yeah.
To move forward. Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited about this. And so, as we said before, check out Attitude Magazine. That has lots of good information. You yourself have been a contributor. You mentioned Dr. Dodson, who's also kind of a prolific contributor to the publication. Then your website, maggiealexandernp.com. And then if you're watching this live exactly in this moment, the resource is not quite there yet, but it will be there in a couple of days.
Soon. Yeah.
Very, very soon. So, if you want to I would say even just send Maggie an email if it is on your radar and you don't want to forget to get access to that, because I think that protocol, I cannot wait to see the amount of people who start bringing that into their providers, because it'll be interesting, because I imagine those providers might start purchasing the book to be like, oh, wow, it's interesting. I keep having people bring in this thing. It's coming from somewhere. Let me go find out information about that person. So I can't wait to see the ripple effect of how this all plays out. And I really appreciate your work in this world, because I know that my family will very much benefit from your book directly. So that's even better when that happens.
Oh, you're so welcome. Again, thank you, Jen. It's been, continues to be a great pleasure and honor. So I thank you.
Thank you, Maggie.
All right.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Appreciate it.